The use of tap and go payment continues to be the preferred, if not popular, contactless method of paying during the global pandemic. And as the use of cards and other wearable devices snowballs, so is the speed of which cyber criminals latch onto new ways of partying the unsuspecting with their cash and data. This is according to the Wireless Application Service Providers Association. And to help us dissect what this means and how you can protect yourself, we're joined by its Managing Executive, Ilonka Badenhorst, on Zoom. Ilonka, a very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having us on the show.
Let's start with you explaining to us in greater detail what the tap and go payment method is.
Well, a tap and go payment, in the simplest terms, is a contactless payment, and it's becoming one of the most popular payment methods, especially now during the pandemic, where we're all avoiding touching any surfaces or objects. So, with the help of a technology called near-field communication, bank cards and digital wallets on your smartphone or your smart device can complete fast and secure transactions by a simple tap on the screen of a contactless enabled point of sale device. So to break it down a little bit further to exactly understand what tap and go is, it's a technology that uses tokens and radio frequencies. Mm-hmm. So when you take your bank card or your digital wallet that's on your smartphone or your smart device, and you tap it on that screen, it takes your account number and turns it into a digital token. The token is not the same as the actual number on your card, making it an extremely safe and secure way of transferring information between banks. And it also makes it very difficult for any retailer to obtain any personal information about their customer. But more importantly, it makes it so difficult for any hacker to steal your banking information or your personal information, because each transaction is unique and cannot be duplicated or replicated.
Let's talk about the basic principles of security that apply to the tap and go functionality to ensure that it continues to be safe and convenient.
So SABC has reassured all South Africans that the use of contactless payments is as secure as the traditional card systems, because they are also embedded with the chip and PIN code functionalities. Also, the devices and the cards itself are embedded with extra layers of security to make sure that the information is safe and secure. Now, I know a lot of consumers have been wondering how safe it truly is, and whether somebody, if they're close enough to you, can actually use your card by just being in your proximity. Luckily, that's not the case. So some of the security measures that have been put in place, for example, is the fact that in the beginning, there was a 200 Rand transaction limit. So you could tap and go any transaction that was 200 Rand or less. Anything above that, you would have to still enter your PIN on the device. And the banks have all agreed, and this amount has been increased to 500 Rand as more and more consumers start using this and would like this convenience and functionality. So anything now below 500, you don't need to enter the PIN, but anything over you do.
Does it not expose the consumers to vulnerability, though? Because if the card gets stolen and then the thief or whosoever is taking the card can just go around tapping and tapping.
100%. I think the biggest risk with the tap and go system, however, is the physical card or the physical device. If that's taken from the consumer, yes, that criminal can run around and go tap. But luckily, the limit has been set. So that criminal will have to tap the card, wait for the receipt, and then a new amount has to be entered before they can tap again. There's also other security things that have been put in place, that the card and the card reader need to be exactly in the right direction and in the same space. So here, to avoid or to try and mitigate that risk of losing your card, is that the consumer must, as soon as a device or a card is stolen, they must inform their bank or their MNO to immediately block that. Another layer of protection here is to ensure that you always request or activate alerts, like SMS notifications for each transaction. Let's say you've been out at a restaurant, your wallet has been stolen, and you're totally unaware. You will get that notification from a bank and immediately realize that somebody is in possession of your card and it's not you, and you can go and block it immediately.
Okay. What are some of the common mistakes that consumers make when using this method that may make them vulnerable to cyber criminals?
Well, from all of the research so far, this is probably one of the most secure ways to do digital transactions. But we're just focusing on bank cards at the moment. The tap and go functionality actually goes further. It also applies to smartwatches and smartphones. So for consumers that have, for example, downloaded Google Pay, Apple Pay, Huawei Pay, for consumers that use functionality, for example, Zapper or SnapScan, here consumers have to be very careful because then the payment system is only as secure as your phone is.
Yes.
So you need to make sure that you do have anti-fraud solutions and antivirus software on your devices. You need to make sure that you've got proper PIN codes and passcodes or to method authentications, for example, fingerprint, etc., in order to validate your transactions. And I think the biggest mistake that consumers make is that they use the same login details. They use the same username and the same password across all of their accounts. So if one account has been breached, it's very easy for them then to use it on all of the other accounts that that consumer has.
Now, the PINs and the two-step authentications are known and believed to be some of the safer methods of protecting our cash and data. Is it still the case?
That is still the case.
Okay.
I think that we are growing. The reality is that we are now in a digital age, and we're going to move more and more closer towards actually just using digital wallets, moving away from cash and, optimizing and utilizing all of these digital solutions. And I think that the developers have really, really put in time, and they are securing it more and more as we go. And I think that the two-step authentication is of the utmost importance still. Sometimes it's a little bit inconvenient, but I think that adds the most value or the most protection for consumers.
So, Ilonka, what are some of the practical and safer methods users can actually apply to ensure that their PINs are protected and not vulnerable to cyber criminals?
So I think one of the major things is that most consumers use their, for example, their email addresses, their username across the board.
Okay.
Start getting creative and changing that up. Also with passwords, if it's an account that is not linked, for example, to a bank card or some account that could be exploited, then you can have like a universal password. But if it's an account or an app that is specifically linked, you need to use unique passwords. And also log out of your apps every now and again and log back in to make sure that you are protecting yourself. And I think, as I said earlier, make sure that you set transaction limits and always set your alerts that you get these SMS notifications when there is any activity on any of your accounts.
Yeah. What are some of the new ways that the cyber criminals have found around the tap and go functionality that most people may not be aware of?
So I think that at a stage a while ago, there was a lot of information going around on social media where, for example, they said that if a criminal is close enough to you in proximity, that they would be able to use the tap and go functionality. This has been tested and this has been debunked. You physically have to be in a very, very close proximity with the contactless enabled point of sale device and the card being exactly in the same direction for it to work. Then we also have the transaction limits that have been set. Another thing that a lot of consumers have asked is, but I've got more than one bank card in my wallet. So what happens if they just tap my card? Is it going to go through on all of the different cards? This has also been debunked. That is not possible. The card reader can only interact with one specific card. So if there's more than one card in a wallet, then that functionality will not work. So they have implemented some security measures to ensure that this is not exploited and used in the wrong way.
Yeah.
I think the biggest vulnerability is physically staying in possession of the card or the digital wallet, which is on your mobile phone or watch.
Okay. And you say that the tap and go payments as well as the add to mobile bill functionalities are safe, secure and convenient, isn't it? But they are not necessarily fallible. Tell us what you mean by that.
Okay, as an example, so another type of tap and go functionality or payment method that's come into play is with the mobile network operators. As an example, you have a contract with Vodacom or MTN. You can now go into their apps and actually purchase a variety of things. So it's either in-app purchases. You can now pay for subscriptions for your Netflix or your Spotify Premium using your actual mobile network operator account. So there's no need for any bank cards. There's no need. They don't even have your banking information from the apps or the product or service that you're purchasing. You actually just added to your mobile bill. Now, that is so convenient. For every month, you can just tap and decide what it is that you would like to add, and there you go. But now, this is not fallible. Here, the human element needs to come in, where us as consumers, we have to secure our devices. We have to have anti-fraud on it. We have to make sure that we've got PIN codes and passwords on it. And that as a consumer, we also take those additional steps not to make us vulnerable. As an example, something that a lot of consumers do when they're traveling, or now that a lot of us work remotely, is that they sign into public Wi-Fi networks. And this is actually quite dangerous. If you just sign in, a lot of times there are hackers waiting, and users use login details, which they then capture, and then it's very easy to then corrupt your device, steal either cash or do transactions that are unauthorized, but also being able to have access to your personal data, which is becoming such a big commodity and should be secured at all times.
Okay, and as Wasper, what are you doing to ensure and make the users, the merchants, the consumers in general are actually aware and safe from cyber criminals when it comes to using the tap-and-go payment methods?
Well, Wasper is a self-regulatory body, and we've got a dual mandate. It's self-regulation and representing our members. So all of our members that operate within the space need to adhere to our code of conduct. And then we also have a complaint system where consumers can lodge complaints if they believe that any of our members have not followed these very strict rules and guidelines. Within the specific space, though, it's extremely regulated by the banking space, and the financial space is really regulated. We will always, any consumer that comes to us with a complaint, if we cannot deal with it, then we'll obviously direct them in the correct direction. On Wasper's side, we're just trying to do educational drives to make sure that consumers know that this form of payment is safe and secure. However, they do need to take certain steps just to make sure that they are not exploited in any way or form.
All right, Ilonka, you know, you've opened our eyes to so many things when it comes to security of our cash and data. We do appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a lovely Sunday.
You too, Ilonka. Thank you.